Hey guys, it's Aaron again. Sorry for the long waiting videos, I've just had a lot of things to deal with. And today I am bringing a new deck profile, something that I've just recently completed, or sort of updated rather. And it is the Eradicators. So let's get things started off. The choice of starter is Linchu. It's kind of handy for sniping off the grade zeros that tend to stay in the field, like Amena Hakari, sort of like key units that Genesis need. Yeah, so it's pretty good. Also combos quite well with Zuiten when you ride him. So that's that. Now for the trigger lineup. Because it's the cutest trigger ever. 4 Eradicator Blue Gem Carbuncle. Draw trigger. 4 of them. Next up is 4 Sayobo, 4 heal. And next up is 8 crit with 4 Yellow Gem Carbuncle and 4 Pollux. So it's pretty much a standard trigger lineup for Eradicators, to be honest with you. There's not really much variation in it. Next on to the grade 1s. I have 4 gold, Eradicator version, not the old one, because obviously it doesn't really fit the theme well. So it's nothing pretty much special. Most people run 4 perfect guards, maybe 3. Next up is 4 Demolition Dragon. So it's basically the 10k attacker, like grade 1 for Eradicators. So if you have an Eradicator Vanguard and this guy attacks, he will get an extra 3000 until the end of that battle. So it's pretty handy for sort of like grade 1 rush. Next up, I have another very good card, Steel-Blooded Eradicator Shuki. So basically, his ability is, when your opponent's rearguard is put into the drop zone due to an effect from one of your cards, if you have a Vanguard with Eradicator in its name, this card gets plus 3000 until the end of the turn. So for every card that gets put into the drop by an effect of yours, he goes up by another 3000. So if you got rid of 3, he would go up by 9000, making him 16k. Which is pretty good for even just like attacking purposes. If you were low on grade 2 attackers maybe, or no demolition dragons. So it's sort of like quite handy to overpower the opponent. Next, I run 2 Eradicator of Fire Kokaji. He's sort of like the Eradicator Vanguard 10k booster. The ability is, when this unit boosts a Narukami Vanguard, if the number of cards in your opponent's damage zone is 3 or more, the boosted unit gets plus 4000 to the end of the battle. So it's kind of nice as well. And next up, the lone copy of Ceremonial Bonfire Eradicator Castel. I used to run 2 of this, but I kind of found it was dead most of the time. So I've sort of dropped it to the 1 copy, because I kind of needed to fit a 4th perfect guard in, because I was only running 3 before. I thought this is kind of like one that I can drop. So it's still quite a nice tech option, so it's not that bad, but its ability is only working on rearguard. So choose, its ability is, when this unit is placed on rearguard, if you have a Narukami Vanguard, and the number of rearguards the opponent has is 2 or less, you may pay the cost of choosing a card from hand and discarding it, and if you do, draw a card. So it's kind of nice to get rid of like the odd dead grade 3 or cards that won't be much use at the time. So it's kind of handy. So that's why I probably still run 1 as a tech. Next up for the grade 2s, I run 4 Supreme Army Eradicator Zuiten. Now, this is pretty much run in every build, I believe, because it's the only damage on flipper. So basically his ability is, when this unit attacks and it hits the Vanguard. If you have a Vanguard with Eradicator in its name, choose a card from your damage zone and turn it face up and soul charge 1. This is kind of mainly from the Descendant builds, because you also have the it's like the superior starter, superior ride starter, which kind of helps because you need him on Vanguard for that. But this ability works on Vanguard and Rearguard. So when I was saying with Linchu earlier, imagine I've already ridden a grade 1, and he's like there. So you've got Zuitan now. So when this attack hits, and you've already got like counterblasted damage or something or other, I worded it right. So when the attack hits, and you've only got 1 damage rather, you can counterblast for Linchu, do his ability, and then because it triggers at the same time, you do Zuitan's one after. So it's kind of handy, the ideal grade 2 ride, so you can get all your damage unflipped. Oh, 1 second. Let's move that away. And then next up for the grade 2s, I think it's pretty much standard in all the Eradicators, for Spark Rain Dragon. So like Demolition Dragon earlier with the grade 1 10k attack, this one is the grade 2 but it goes up to 12,000 instead. So it's the same ability but it's base 9,000 power. Last but not least, a card that Dell doesn't seem to like, but I still find him quite useful for getting rid of like rear guards that are either on their own or they won't have anything to boost, or even a starter at some point if no one's let him go off. And that's 3 copies of Fiendish Sword Eradicator Choto. Now his ability is, when this unit is placed on Vanguard or Rearguard, if you have a Narukami Vanguard, you may pay the cost of choosing another Eradicator Rearguard in its card name, putting it into Soul. If you do that, choose one of your opponent's Rearguards in the front row and retire it. Now this is kind of good for getting rid of pesky interceptors and certain cards that you don't want on the front row. And it also creates an open space for the alternative boss monster that I've got coming up in this, which most people aren't using at all. So it's kind of good for getting rid of like certain things out of the way. Now next up is the grade 3s, and one that everyone is pretty much running 4 at the moment, and that is Eradicator Ignition Dragon. Now this card came out in set 14, Brilliant Strike, and it pretty much does replace Vow and Sword because Vow and Sword is just kind of only used in Vow and Reverse build now. The ability is, when a Narukami rides this unit, you may pay the cost, which is counterblasting just the 1 card, which is a very cheap cost. If you do, your opponent chooses 2 of his or her own rearguards and retires them. Choose your Vanguard and then it gets plus 10,000 to the end of the turn. So for pretty much counterblasting just 1, even though you lose the right to actually choose what you retire, it's still forcing your opponent to think about, oh, what ones do I actually really get rid of, what ones do I actually need? And then he has the other ability of Lord, which is getting rid of come sec 16. And the other ability is when it attacks, if the number of rearguards I have, or you have rather, is more than your opponent's, it gets plus 2,000 to the end of the battle. So it's pretty handy break ride. Best one out for Narukami at the moment. I wouldn't bother with Vow and Reverse anymore, Vow and Saber or Vow and Sword, whatever its name is. Next up is probably arguably one of the best grade 3s for Eradicators, and that is Gauntlet Buster Dragon. Now, for just counterblasting 2, you get to choose one. Your opponent chooses one of his or her rearguards and retires it. So it's kind of like the same thing with Ignition Dragon. You kind of lose the right, but it makes your opponent think, what do I actually need to keep on the field to actually like stay in the game, kind of thing. But then his limit break ability is also what makes the opponent think even harder. Is that when you've got 4 damage, when an opponent's rearguard is put into the drop zone due to an effect of your own cards, it gets plus 3000 and 1 critical. So imagine break riding with this guy. So you Counter Blast 1 for Ignition Dragon's effect, and that's retiring 2 monsters, or 2 units rather. And then the limit break on Gauntlet Buster stacks. So once it's, even if you get a heal trigger, it's still active because it was triggered because it's an auto skill. So that's a very cheap way to not having to use Gauntlet Buster twice. So just for 1 Counter Blast, you've basically gave Gauntlet Buster plus 6000 power and plus 2 critical, and then combined with Shuki, when 2 units are retired, his base 7 will go up to 13 because it gets plus 3000 per rearguard retired by one of your effects. So this clan can not only retire but gain power and pluses from it. So it's very pressure orientated. And last but not least, the card that I don't think anyone's using that much, personal favourite of mine, is Eradicator Tempest Bolt Dragon. Now most people think, oh god, it's like Counter Blast 3, too costly. But you have to think it's retiring everything on the field, and then its other ability kicks in. During your turn, when he's on Vanguard, it gets plus 2000 per empty circle on the field. That's not just yours, that's both sides of the field, including your opponents. So even if you don't actually use the limit break, there's bound to be a couple of rearguard circles open, like 2, 3 maybe, so that's plus 6000. That's not too shabby. And then if you've got something boosting behind it, it's a column that's going to be over 20,000, which most decks or most people want to be hitting for anyway, at least, to force out more 10k guards and perfect guards and stuff. I quite like the art on it as well. So it's just standing now, all shiny shiny. He's also got the Lord skill, which won't be around, like I said, after set 16 because they're getting rid of it. I did actually recently test this build out at a tournament, and I did actually come second, only to Grand Blue. Now you may think I should have probably won that due to the nature of Grand Blue, but they're actually getting a lot better now thanks to all the Cocytus reverse support, and then eventually all the Pinot Noir and all the Legion stuff that's coming out in 17, I believe. The only reason why, I did actually use Tempest Bolt's ability, Limit Break, for Game 1 to actually win. Called a couple of rearguards after, obviously, so I can get extra attacks in. Then Game 2, he literally won with a lucky crit when I'm on 4 damage, and it was on the second drive check he got it on. Then Game 3, I really didn't have anything that I didn't have anything to actually put on-field pressure on, so I had like hardly any rearguards to actually get attacks in with. So it's kind of hit and miss still, but it's been testing pretty well. And I do quite enjoy playing the Eradicators. It's not often that I do play them, because I did actually used to run Descendant, but I thought I'll give Tempest Bolt a go, because I actually quite like it. Because like I said, even if you don't use the limit break ability, there's bound to be a few open circles to get an extra free power boost, which doesn't cost anything. Which I think some people are kind of overlooking because they think, oh, it's only the limit break ability you can use him for, which isn't true at all. So I'm going to probably take this to a winner box tournament that's happening this weekend near me. So I'll probably see if I can post results of that. If not, I shall see you later, guys. Don't forget to comment, like and subscribe, and share it around with the world. Thanks very much. Bye.